Hey everybody, welcome to Country Girl. My name's Kathy Jarvis, and last couple of nights we've had some really cold weather. So let's go out in the garden and see what survived and what didn't. My name's Kathy Jarvis, and again, welcome to Country Girl. And this is my garden. Now you know we've had a problem with the strawberries. Now these over here are doing quite well, but this group over here just didn't do very well. So we're going to change this out next year and put a raised bed and get rid of this pyramid. And probably most likely get rid of that pyramid too. Just put them all in one big raised bed. So strawberries did fine during the freeze. The blueberries have got a nice winter color. Blackberries, they did okay during the freeze. But the tomatoes, they didn't. Now can you imagine what it would have been like, how traumatic it would have been if I walked out here and saw this and not expected it? That's what happens to a lot of new gardeners when they don't understand the concept of a freeze. Freeze, just for definition, a freeze is our light frost is anywhere between the nighttime temperatures fall between 28 to 32. And I've seen it divided up into 3 different categories: light freeze, moderate freeze, and hard freeze. And light freeze is usually between 25 degrees and 32. The medium freeze is 25 to 28, and the hard freeze is anything below 24. I usually divide it into just a light and a killing freeze. And a light freeze is up to 28 degrees, and that will kill your tender plants. Your beans, which you see here, and your tomatoes will be gone at the 28 degrees usually. After 28 degrees, anything below 28 degrees is called a killing frost. And that will kill your plants that are tender, but they can still take a little bit of frost. So, why is it important to know about the different types of plants? Because when a frost occurs, these plants are made up of water in their cells. And as the temperatures go down, this water freezes inside of them and bursts and breaks down the cell wall of the plant. And that's why they look so wilted after a frost. And that's why they die. But you have 2 different types of plants. You have those that are frost tolerant, which means they can take a frost, and those that cannot. And during the spring and fall, that's when you have to be most careful of watching out for frost. And the best way to do that is to know your frost-free dates. Now these are just estimates, and you can go online and just write on there frost date in your area, and it will come up and tell you what the frost dates are. For my area, the average frost date is, for the winter, is October 10th. And in the spring, it goes to April 23rd. Now these are just approximate. Doesn't mean that they're going to happen directly on that day. In fact, we have just had our first frost last night, which was in November 3rd, 2nd and 3rd. So I had all that time between there that we had absolutely nothing. And our first frost actually turned out to be a killing frost. In fact, the TV has reported that they will no longer give frost warnings out for the season because of that. So you have to keep in mind when you're planting your plants what you're planting. and also what to cover in the spring especially, and what to cover in the fall if you want to try to keep them. Now, I didn't bother about covering anything out here in the outside garden because everything is pretty much done for the season except for the lima beans. Lima beans I was really disappointed in. They kept putting out flowers but very few pods. So one thing, as you're beginning to approach the season for frost, it's a good idea to check your phone or check your weather, the 10-day forecast, so you can know when to prepare. Because, like I said, the frost dates that you get are just estimates, and they are no guarantee that you're going to have a frost right on that day. And there's no guarantee you're going to not have a frost a few days before or a few days after. So you need to check your 10-day weather report. So let's go in and see how the coleus did in the small greenhouse. Now, last night it got down to 25 degrees, and in here it got down to 28, I think I read. So we'll see what kind of damage was done to the coleus. I remember, I'm not hoping to save these all winter. I just kind of want to save a few of them if I can. It doesn't look good. The Brussels sprouts are wonderful. They are the frost tolerant plants, and so are the potatoes. Coleus are a tender plant, and so is your basil. In fact, basil will start showing damage at 38 degrees. But I think, all in all, I'm not too unhappy with this. I have a couple more days of nighttime temperatures low, and then it's supposed to pop back up. So if I'm just losing the top leaves and not the bottom leaves, I'm pretty confident that I can at least save them enough to take some more cuttings. I've just been so busy, I haven't had a chance to take the cuttings that I wanted to take. So let's go check out the main greenhouse. You'll notice also that all the annual flowers succumbed to the frost. They're all gone. So I will collect the seeds off of these and chop them down, most likely. But you'll also notice that back here, the pre-annuals are still green. In fact, they're still blooming. So that's the difference between your annuals and your pre-annuals. In the melon patch, if you remember correctly, we had that one little watermelon that was trying to grow. It succumbed. So, how do you know which plants are going to live and which ones are going to succumb to the frost? It's pretty easy. All your so-called summer plants, tomatoes and eggplants, things like that, your basil, your corn, your green beans, your melons, your okra, the peppers, potatoes, pumpkins, rosemary, summer squash, your winter squash, sweet potatoes, and your tomatoes will all not survive below 32 degrees. Not unless you put a lot of protection on them. And I mean a lot. My peppers and my eggplant, well, my peppers were covered inside the greenhouse, but my eggplant wasn't. And I'll turn you around and let you see what happened to those during the freeze. This is the eggplant. You'll notice that it is all brown, grayish at the top. Still a little bit of green at the bottom. But all the blooms, those beautiful blooms that we had the other day, are now just shriveled up brown pieces. So even inside the greenhouse with this plant, it did not survive the the weather in the 20s. Peppers did not do much better. These were covered, and they're still showing signs of frost damage, and most likely will be dying out. Everything that's got the leaves wilted and stuff is basically gone. You'll see some in the front here that are still pretty good. My tomatoes also pretty much succumbed. I've still got some on the lower leaves that are still green. I got green tomatoes on here, yep. But a lot of the leaves, a lot of them took damage. So the tomatoes will probably be gone too. Now, let's uncover my lettuces and see how they're doing. Now remember, the only reason I covered these was because they were young, very, very young. Once they get a little bit older, I will not have to be covering them unless I just want to keep them from freezing to harvest. Now you got the plants that can take a light freeze, which is like 28 degrees to 32. Your cauliflower, your celery, and your some lettuce and your peas can take those without any covering hardly at all. And as you can see, mine did not get any damage at all. Now vegetables that can stand a hard freeze are your rocket, your broccoli, your Brussels sprouts, beets. Remember I told you I wasn't going to cover the beets? Beets are looking wonderful, no problem there whatsoever. Your cabbages, your collards, kale. As my husband says, nothing kills the kale. Leeks, some lettuces depending upon the variety, your mustards, your onions, your garlic, parsnips and parsley, the radishes. Notice the radishes are all nice and they're doing really great actually. Spinach will survive all winter long outside, even with very little care. And your Swiss chard and your turnips will handle the really, really cold weather. So I hope you've learned something. I hope you enjoyed this little November tour of what happened after the frost. Now all I have to do is get busy and clean up the outer garden and start getting it ready to go to bed for the winter. So hopefully you learned something. Remember, give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. That will let me know whether you like the content or not. It also lets YouTube know that you're watching. Consider subscribing to the channel to see what I'm doing for the rest of the season, because I am planning on continuing growing into the greenhouse and seeing just what I can grow over the winter, just for the heck of it. See what I do. And remember, like always, dream big and follow that dream. And if you're doing any winter gardening, let me know in the comments below where you're at, what zone you're in, and how things are going. So until later, see you later. Bye.